Hello, virtual arts fans, and welcome to a very special episode of our series, Good Talk Chit Chats. In this episode, we'll be looking at gender and sexual identity terms. We've asked some of our friends and family members to give us their definitions of what they think these terms mean. We hope you find it entertaining and maybe also learn a little something in the process. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.
My name is Anna Javier, and these are my progeny. This is Daniel Javier and Jerry Javier. We also call Jerry Cherry Javier. With their middle name is Lane, so they go by Cherry Lane.
Hi, my name is Emily Fitzgerald, and I'm a 12th grader at Tuscarora High School. I'm Allison Fitzgerald, and I'm also a 12th grader at Tuscarora High School.
My name is Jordan Santa Maria. I am 40 years old. I am a trans man, and I have been transitioning medically and with hormone therapy for 5 years.
So to me, like in a simple way, it means you were born and you came out and the world took a look at you and said, you're going to be this. And then everyone around said, that's who they're going to be.
Cisgender is pretty straightforward. It's basically the biological sex you're assigned at birth.
It's this feeling you have to your body where it's I bet you've heard this a lot, or maybe not as much, but you don't feel like it's right to you. It doesn't, like, you just don't feel right in the body you were born in, and you get anxiety, and your head gives you these thoughts that just makes you feel really bad about your body because you were born in the wrong body.
I think it's also kind of like the feeling of not fitting in the gender you were assigned at birth. It's more you feel like dysphoric and kind of unmatched to what gender you were given, and you may feel like something else.
Well, gender dysphoria is something I know very well. It is when a person, for example, I'll just use myself because it's the easiest thing. I was born biologically female, and I was assigned female at birth, but felt that that gender that I was assigned did not match who I really was, regardless of my biological sex. And so it created a lot of confusion and pain and guilt and emotional problems, and you just don't feel comfortable in your own skin.
I think that being gender fluid means that you can be comfortable with your masculine qualities and be comfortable with your feminine qualities.
Gender fluid is the sense that you fit both genders, that you kind of can feel as though you can flow between both male and female, that you can kind of identify with both. You may feel more masculine or more feminine some days, but you feel as though you can fit both and go between them.
So, if we think about kind of norms and that gender expectations, right? Women are supposed to be very feminine. You're supposed to be doing domestic stuff, right? That's what it's been historically, right? Maternity. Men, right? The very strong, masculine, and these are our gender binary roles. So gender nonconforming is a way of explaining different ways of presenting yourself and expressing yourself. That kind of start to break those barriers down.
You don't buy clothes that are like typically more female, more male. You dress whatever you like, what's comfortable. You don't conform yourself to the society, like to gender
like
standard.
the norms or values of society with specific genders like pink or blue, like that type of thing.
Gender nonconforming is kind of similar to gender fluid. A gender fluid person would fit into gender nonconforming, and I guess even a trans person might fit into gender nonconforming because they're not conforming to the gender assigned to them at birth. See, it all comes down to what we are assigned to at birth.
I feel like the only thing I've ever heard of related to intersex could be when you technically are both. Like maybe that's anatomy based, but I'm not really sure on that one, honestly.
It's more of a biological thing necessarily than a gender situation. Someone who is born with reproductive organs or genitalia that is not necessarily fully male, fully female, or maybe neither.
The same thing as you just asked me again. Are you testing me? Didn't you just ask me that at the beginning?
I feel like kind of non-binary is when you don't want to align with one specific one or another, but rather you're just expressing yourself as a person and your own personal values and norms, as opposed to aligning with one gender or societal norms for one gender.
So non-binary would mean what I thought it meant for what the other one was, which is that you don't identify. No.
Non-binary. Non-binary is someone who doesn't fit on the binary at all.
Yeah, you're on the right
Yeah,
track.
you don't identify as a man or a woman. You're like asexual. No.
So you could also, instead of kind of going between both and being non-binary, you could also just have something that is outside of the set too.
What's that called? Wait, is that non-binary? That's just,
That is not. That's what we're talking about.
Pansexual. Pansexual has to do with sexual orientation as opposed to gender identity.
Sorry, one of my friends is pansexual, so I know this one really well.
Pan is the god of with hooves, not the god of hooves, but Pan is the one with the flute. That's a mythological figure.
Basically, a lot of people get that confused, and I think that's one of the prime things that people need to understand: the difference between sexual orientation, which is who a person is attracted to, who a person would like to have sex with, versus gender identity, which is what a person feels they are in terms of gender.
Anyways, so pansexual pretty much means, in terms of your sexuality and dating or relationship wise, you focus more so on the contents of someone's heart and their personality as opposed to their gender. So you would feel comfortable dating someone who is male, female, transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender fluid. When you're pansexual, you focus more on the contents of the person rather than what their specific gender may be.
Well, pan is derived from the Greek prefix meaning all inclusive and everything. It's kind of like the world, like pan, you know. I know people always say, "Oh, you're pansexual. What are you attracted to pots and pans?" It's like, please, already, you know.
Definition. It's not picking male or female. It's more like you just love them as the person they are.
I identify as pansexual. My wife identifies as pansexual. It just means that you are attracted to a person regardless of gender.
Queer, which for many folks may initially hit as a derogatory term, is one that is increasingly being kind of reclaimed. And right, queer can often is used to just mean you're not straight and or not cisgender.
Kind of like that umbrella term that if you don't know if you're lesbian, gay, bi, pan, it's kind of that umbrella term, so you know that you're different in the sense that you're not straight, but you don't have to pick exactly what it is. For me, it's kind of like that umbrella term to use.
Oh, queer. That's a loaded one. I know that queer for a long time was considered derogatory. And then the community sort of took it back and owned it again.
So it's one of our umbrella terms. It can be a catch-all. It can mean I'm transgender and I'm straight. It could mean I am gay and I'm transgender. It could, mean you're some mix of all the LGBTQ alphabet soup. But it's also just a nice way of being like, I'm different and I'm certainly not, a cishet person, or, I'm not falling into a lot of our normal categories.
I like it personally, the term. It's an umbrella term. I mean, what does the word queer mean in general, right? It means different.
I feel like it's definitely taken a more positive approach recently. I mean, there are still some people who still view it as a derogatory term, but I feel like it is definitely stepping more into the positive idea and the fact that it's just the umbrella term for everything.
Well, yeah, and I feel like it's people more so address it as, oh, I'm taking the time to recognize myself and figure out what label I want for myself. That it's not so much seen as like an insult, but more so just, hey, I'm processing type of thing, or I'm working through myself. Or it's not even so much an insult as it just says, hey, this is the community I'm a part of.
By taking it back, by the community taking it back, we're saying, okay, yeah, well, maybe we're a little different, but we're not odd.
Transgender is under the umbrella of, like non-binary, gender fluid, I think. But it's just under this umbrella, and it could be a male transitioning to female, or a female transitioning to male.
Transgender, I don't know how this is going to go over with everyone.
Transgender is the process from switching from one gender to another. It's typically from your gender assigned at birth. You don't identify with it anymore, and you go through the process of fixing it so you don't have to. Because a lot of people I've met who are transgender, it can have a negative impact on you physically, but mainly mentally.
It's kind of gender dysphoria.
You don't feel as though you are who you are. You don't feel as though you fit in with what you feel on the inside.
I consider myself transgender because I was born biologically female. I was assigned female gender at birth and realized very quickly that those two things were not coinciding. And slowly, very slowly, should have done it sooner, but I believe everything happens for a reason, realized that I had to transition. Just the word, to me, I'm a stickler. I was an English major, so I'm a stickler for the word, transition. So I transitioned essentially medically 5 years ago, and just in terms of emotionally and spiritually, maybe 8 years ago, I'd say.
What they all have in common, right, is we're explaining some kind of departure from a normal expectation into some other kind of exploration of gender expression.
For me, as a femme transgender boy, I want people to start accepting me more as seeing me as a boy than a trans. Like, I know I'm a trans boy. I'm not trying to be trans mask. And I know that, but I want people to see me as a boy.
Personally, I hope that it's headed in a positive direction. I mean, I myself is a bisexual student, and when I'm looking at colleges, there's a lot of colleges who have already made a ton of organizations, or even as a woman, in a science field, there's a bunch of clubs just for that. I feel as though the society that we're heading in, a lot of people I've talked to about it, they're like, oh, I don't care as long as you're a good person. And I feel like that's a good way to look at it. It's not an I don't care as in I don't respect you, but it's more as in I don't care. You're just another human being. And as long as you're a good person, that's all that matters. And I feel like that's a good direction society should be going in.
I just I just want people to be more accepting of me. And
I mean, obviously, things are going a little bit better. We had a bit of a setback with the last political administration, but overall, things are slowly moving forward. The thing that concerns me the most out of everything is the protection of trans
I was
kids.
gonna say, kind of to add on to that, as like, because myself, I'm straight, but I feel like a lot of people that I know who are also straight, but I also have friends who are in the LGBTQ community. I feel like a lot of times though, it's not becoming a community where it's limited to just those who participate it and are and actively members. But like myself, like it's kind of becoming the sense of recognizing, although I'm not in that community, I can recognize it and be a part of it and be an ally and help those who are if they are facing any sort of injustice. Because I feel like there's kind of more a sense of it shouldn't be one or the other, but rather people could just be together.
I hope that we can all learn how to communicate with each other better, and just on another level.
These kids are committing suicide at an unprecedented rate. And I did this as an adult, and it was the most difficult thing that I've ever done. So to be a teenager and to already be going through all that hormonal stuff and puberty and peer pressure and the way the world is today, it's so horrible with the cyberbullying and everybody hides behind that stupid screen and they abuse these kids and they abuse each other and the self-harm and just there needs to be more protection. There needs to be more support for kids who don't fit into this perfect little mold, this apple pie mold.
Together. Yeah, it's all about if whether or not you're a good person. It's not whether or part what you identify with or what your sexuality is. And I feel like some people still don't understand that and they still view it as something that is wrong, whether with their political, religious, spiritual beliefs. But I feel like society as a whole, I feel like it is heading towards more of a direction, at least in the United States. And other countries are way beyond us, but then others are way behind us. So hopefully it does move forward continuously, hopefully in all areas of the world.
Christy wanted this to be 8 minutes. It's now 2 hours, but who cares?